Judges chapter 1. After the death of Joshua, the Israelites inquired of the Lord, "Who will be the first to go up and fight for us against the Canaanites?" "Judah shall go up," answered the Lord. "Indeed, I have delivered the land into their hands." Then the men of Judah said to their brothers, the Simeonites, "Come up with us to our allotted territory, and let us fight against the Canaanites. And we likewise will go with you to your territory." So the Simeonites went with them. When Judah attacked, the Lord delivered the Canaanites and Perizzites into their hands, and they struck down 10,000 men at Bezek. And there they found Adoni-Bezek and fought against him, striking down the Canaanites and Perizzites. As Adoni-Bezek fled, they pursued him, seized him, and cut off his thumbs and big toes. Then Adoni-Bezek said, 70 kings with their thumbs and big toes cut off have gathered the scraps under my table. As I have done to them, so God has repaid me. And they brought him to Jerusalem, where he died. Then the men of Judah fought against Jerusalem and captured it. They put the city to the sword and set it on fire. Afterward, the men of Judah marched down to fight against the Canaanites living in the hill country in the Negev and in the foothills. Judah also marched against the Canaanites who were living in Hebron, formerly known as Kiriath Arba, and they struck down Sheshai, Ahiman, and Talmai. From there they marched against the inhabitants of Debir, formerly known as Kiriath Sepher. And Caleb said, "To the man who strikes down Kiriath Sepher and captures it, I will give my daughter Achsah in marriage." So Othniel, son of Caleb's younger brother Kenaz, captured the city, and Caleb gave his daughter Achsah to him in marriage. One day Achsah came to Othniel and urged him to ask her father for a field. When she got off her donkey, Caleb asked her, "What do you desire?" "Give me a blessing," she answered. "Since you have given me land in the Negev, give me springs of water as well." So Caleb gave her both the upper and lower springs. Now the descendants of Moses' father-in-law, the Kenite, went up with the men of Judah from the city of palms to the wilderness of Judah in the Negev near Arad. They went to live among the people. Then the men of Judah went with their brothers the Simeonites, attacked the Canaanites living in Zephath, and devoted the city to destruction. So it was called Hormah. And Judah also captured Gaza, Ashkelon, and Ekron, each with its territory. The Lord was with Judah, and they took possession of the hill country, but they could not drive out the inhabitants of the plains because they had chariots of iron. Just as Moses had promised, Judah gave Hebron to Caleb, who drove out the descendants of the 3 sons of Anak. The Benjamites, however, failed to drive out the Jebusites living in Jerusalem, so to this day the Jebusites live there among the Benjamites. The house of Joseph also attacked Bethel, and the Lord was with them. They sent spies to Bethel, formerly known as Luz, and when the spies saw a man coming out of the city, they said to him, "Please show us how to get into the city, and we will treat you kindly." So the man showed them the entrance to the city, and they put the city to the sword, but released that man and all his family. And the man went to the land of the Hittites, built a city, and called it Luz, which is its name to this day. At that time Manasseh failed to drive out the inhabitants of Bethshean, Taanach, Dor, Ibleam, Megiddo, and their villages, for the Canaanites were determined to dwell in that land. When Israel became stronger, they pressed the Canaanites into forced labor, but they never drove them out completely. Ephraim also failed to drive out the Canaanites living in Gezer, so the Canaanites continued to dwell among them in Gezer. Zebulun failed to drive out the inhabitants of Kitron and Nahalal, so the Canaanites lived among them and served as forced laborers. Asher failed to drive out the inhabitants of Akko, Sidon, Alab, Akzib, Helba, Aphek, and Rehob. So the Asherites lived among the Canaanite inhabitants of the land because they did not drive them out. Naphtali failed to drive out the inhabitants of Beth Shemesh and Beth Anath. So the Naphtalites also lived among the Canaanite inhabitants of the land, but the inhabitants of Beth Shemesh and Beth Anath served them as forced laborers. The Amorites forced the Danites into the hill country and did not allow them to come down into the plain. And the Amorites were determined to dwell in Mount Heres, Ajalon, and Shealbim. But when the house of Joseph grew in strength, they pressed the Amorites into forced labor. and the border of the Amorites extended from the ascent of Akrabim to Selah and beyond. Judges chapter 2. Now the angel of the Lord went up from Gilgal to Bochim and said, I brought you up out of Egypt and led you into the land that I had promised to your fathers. And I said, I will never break my covenant with you, and you are not to make a covenant with the people of this land, but you shall tear down their altars. Yet you have not obeyed my voice. What is this you have done? So now I tell you that I will not drive out these people before you. They will be thorns in your sides, and their gods will be a snare to you. When the angel of the Lord had spoken these words to all the Israelites, the people lifted up their voices and wept. So they called that place Bochim and offered sacrifices there to the Lord. After Joshua had dismissed the people, the Israelites went out to take possession of the land, each to his own inheritance. And the people served the Lord throughout the days of Joshua and of the elders who outlived him, who had seen all the great works that the Lord had done for Israel. And Joshua son of Nun, the servant of the Lord, died at the age of 110. They buried him in the land of his inheritance at Timnath-Heres in the hill country of Ephraim north of Mount Gaash. After that whole generation had also been gathered to their fathers, another generation rose up who did not know the Lord or the works that he had done for Israel. And the Israelites did evil in the sight of the Lord and served the Baals. Thus they forsook the Lord, the God of their fathers, who had brought them out of the land of Egypt, and they followed after various gods of the peoples around them. They bowed down to them and provoked the Lord to anger, for they forsook him and served Baal and the Ashtoreths. Then the anger of the Lord burned against Israel, and he delivered them into the hands of those who plundered them. He sold them into the hands of their enemies all around, whom they were no longer able to resist. Wherever Israel marched out, the hand of the Lord was against them to bring calamity, just as he had sworn to them, so they were greatly distressed. Then the Lord raised up judges who saved them from the hands of those who plundered them. Israel, however, did not listen to their judges. Instead, they prostituted themselves with other gods and bowed down to them. They quickly turned from the way of their fathers who had walked in obedience to the Lord's commandments. They did not do as their fathers had done. Whenever the Lord raised up a judge for the Israelites, he was with that judge and saved them from the hands of their enemies while the judge was still alive. For the Lord was moved to pity by their groaning under those who oppressed them and afflicted them. But when the judge died, the Israelites became even more corrupt than their fathers, going after other gods to serve them and bow down to them. They would not give up their evil practices and stubborn ways. So the anger of the Lord burned against Israel, and he said, Because this nation has transgressed the covenant I laid down for their fathers and has not heeded my voice, I will no longer drive out before them any of the nations Joshua left when he died. In this way I will test whether Israel will keep the way of the Lord by walking in it as their fathers did. That is why the Lord had left those nations in place and had not driven them out immediately by delivering them into the hand of Joshua. Judges chapter 3. These are the nations that the Lord left to test all the Israelites who had not known any of the wars in Canaan, if only to teach warfare to the subsequent generations of Israel, especially to those who had not known it formerly. The 5 rulers of the Philistines, all the Canaanites, the Sidonians, and the Hivites who lived in the mountains of Lebanon from Mount Baal-Hermon to Lebo-Hamath. These nations were left to test the Israelites, to find out whether they would keep the commandments of the Lord which he had given their fathers through Moses. Thus the Israelites continued to live among the Canaanites, Hittites, Amorites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites. And they took the daughters of these people in marriage, gave their own daughters to their sons, and served their gods. So the Israelites did evil in the sight of the Lord. They forgot the Lord their God and served the Baals and the Asherahs. Then the anger of the Lord burned against Israel, and he sold them into the hand of Cushan-Rishathaim, king of Aram-Naharaim, and the Israelites served him 8 years. But when the Israelites cried out to the Lord, he raised up Othniel, son of Caleb's younger brother Kenaz, as a deliverer to save them. The Spirit of the Lord came upon him, and he became Israel's judge and went out to war. And the Lord delivered Cushan-Rishathaim, king of Aram, into the hand of Othniel, who prevailed against him. So the land had rest for 40 years, until Othniel, son of Kenaz, died. Once again the Israelites did evil in the sight of the Lord. So he gave Eglon, king of Moab, power over Israel, because they had done evil in the sight of the Lord. After enlisting the Ammonites and Amalekites to join forces with him, Eglon attacked and defeated Israel, taking possession of the city of palms. The Israelites served Eglon, king of Moab, 18 years. And again they cried out to the Lord, and he raised up Ehud, son of Gera, a left-handed Benjamite, as their deliverer. So they sent him with tribute to Eglon, king of Moab. Now Ehud had made for himself a double-edged sword, a cubit long. He strapped it to his right thigh under his cloak, and brought the tribute to Eglon, king of Moab, who was an obese man. After Ehud had finished presenting the tribute, he ushered out those who had carried it. But upon reaching the idols near Gilgal, he himself turned back and said, "I have a secret message for you, O king." "Silence," said the king, and all his attendants left him. Then Ehud approached him while he was sitting alone in the coolness of his upper room. "I have a word from God for you," Ehud said. And the king rose from his seat. And Ehud reached with his left hand, pulled the sword from his right thigh, and plunged it into Eglon's belly. Even the handle sank in after the blade, and Eglon's fat closed in over it, so that Ehud did not withdraw the sword from his belly. And Eglon's bowels emptied. Then Ehud went out through the porch, closing and locking the doors of the upper room behind him. After Ehud was gone, Eglon's servants came in and found the doors of the upper room locked. He must be relieving himself in the cool room, they said. So they waited until they became worried and saw that he had still not opened the doors of the upper room. Then they took the key and opened the doors, and there was their lord lying dead on the floor. Ehud, however, had escaped while the servants waited. He passed by the idols and escaped to Seirah. On arriving in Seirah, he blew the ram's horn throughout the hill country of Ephraim. The Israelites came down with him from the hills, and he became their leader. "Follow me," he told them, "for the Lord has delivered your enemies, the Moabites, into your hand." So they followed him down and seized the fords of the Jordan leading to Moab, and did not allow anyone to cross over. At that time they struck down about 10,000 Moabites, all robust and valiant men. Not one of them escaped. So Moab was subdued under the hand of Israel that day, and the land had rest for 80 years. After Ehud came Shamgar, son of Anath, and he too saved Israel, striking down 600 Philistines with an ox goad. Judges chapter 4. After Ehud died, the Israelites again did evil in the sight of the Lord. So the Lord sold them into the hand of Jabin, king of Canaan, who reigned in Hazor. The commander of his forces was Sisera, who lived in Harosheth Hagoyim. Then the Israelites cried out to the Lord because Jabin had 900 chariots of iron, and he had harshly oppressed the Israelites for 20 years. Now Deborah, a prophetess, the wife of Lapidoth, was judging Israel at that time, and she would sit under the palm of Deborah between Ramah and Bethel in the hill country of Ephraim, where the Israelites would go up to her for judgment. She summoned Barak, son of Abinoam, from Kedesh in Naphtali, and said to him, "Surely the Lord, the God of Israel, is commanding you, go and march to Mount Tabor, taking with you 10,000 men of Naphtali and Zebulun. And I will draw out Sisera, the commander of Jabin's army, his chariots and his troops to the river Kishon, and I will deliver them into your hand." Barak said to her, "If you will go with me, I will go, but if you will not go with me, I will not go." "I will certainly go with you," Deborah replied, "but the road you are taking will bring you no honor, because the Lord will be selling Sisera into the hand of a woman." So Deborah got up and went with Barak to Kedesh, where he summoned Zebulun and Naphtali. 10,000 men followed him, and Deborah also went with him. Now Heber the Kenite had moved away from the Kenites, the descendants of Hobab, the father-in-law of Moses, and had pitched his tent by the great tree of Zaanaim, which was near Kedesh. When Sisera was told that Barak, son of Abinoam, had gone up Mount Tabor, he summoned all 900 of his iron chariots and all the men with him from Harosheth Hagoyim to the river Kishon. Then Deborah said to Barak, "Arise, for this is the day that the Lord has delivered Sisera into your hand. Has not the Lord gone before you?" So Barak came down from Mount Tabor with 10,000 men following him. And in front of him the Lord routed with the sword Sisera, all his charioteers and all his army. Sisera abandoned his chariot and fled on foot. Then Barak pursued the chariots and army as far as Harosheth Hagoyim, and the whole army of Sisera fell by the sword. Not a single man was left. Meanwhile Sisera had fled on foot to the tent of Jael, the wife of Heber the Kenite, because there was peace between Jabin king of Hazor and the house of Heber the Kenite. Jael went out to greet Sisera and said to him, "Come in, my lord, come in with me, do not be afraid." So he entered her tent, and she covered him with a blanket. Sisera said to her, "Please give me a little water to drink, for I am thirsty." So she opened a container of milk, gave him a drink, and covered him again. "Stand at the entrance to the tent," he said, "and if anyone comes and asks you, 'Is there a man here?' say, 'No.'" But as he lay sleeping from exhaustion, Heber's wife Jael took a tent peg, grabbed a hammer, and went silently to Sisera. She drove the peg through his temple and into the ground, and he died. When Barak arrived in pursuit of Sisera, Jael went out to greet him and said to him, "Come, and I will show you the man you are seeking." So he went in with her, and there lay Sisera dead with a tent peg through his temple. On that day God subdued Jabin king of Canaan before the Israelites, and the hand of the Israelites grew stronger and stronger against Jabin king of Canaan until they destroyed him.